Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're just going to do a real quick review of our light cruiser fleet here on my YouTube channel because somebody was asking for it on my YouTube channel. So I just want to show what these cruisers have and go over them real quick, and then we're going to see if we can get some games later, which I'll probably do in a separate recording if you're watching this on YouTube. So this is the Marie Curie, the Ada Lovelace, and the Margaret Hamilton. These are all famous women scientists and engineers. The Marie Curie, they're mostly armed with Mark 64 cannons, which are the 250 millimeter medium-sized guns. So we've got, this guy has 3 250s. This guy has 3 250s. And this guy has all 5 of the main weapon hardpoints filled with 250s. So we're a gun cruiser fleet primarily. There's a bunch of utility stuff that's mounted in different locations on these ships as well. Number 1 in my fleet here, Marie Curie, has a bullseye radar system. That's this little dish in the front here, and that's for locking onto enemies, and it helps counter jamming and stuff like that. We also have a missile launcher on 2 of our ships, which I'll get to in a second. This is a size 3 torpedo launcher. And then we have the blanket jammer underneath on number 1. We've got rebounds for shooting down waves of missiles coming in, and we also have a VLS-23 on the bottom here, which has some chaff flares and active decoys. Ship 2 here, and actually let me go over all our weapons real quick, and then I'll go back and do the compartments and stuff. Ship 2 here has also got cannons. I have another blanket jammer on Ship 2. He's got a stonewall for extra point defense, which is the high-powered kind of smart flak turret. And then he's also got the second missile launcher and a bunch of rebounds, 1 defender on the underside here, and then chaff and flares. And then the Margaret Hamilton has all guns except for a Mark 62 cannon on the front. So sorry, it's actually 4 250s, not 5. 4 250s and a Mark 62 cannon on the front. The Mark 62, even though it's technically an offensive weapon, I have it on there primarily for additional point defense. The nice thing about the cannons with HRPF rounds, if you're playing as Alliance, is that they can be, when they're equipped with the right type of round, they will automatically engage and shoot down missiles that are within their range and within their arc. So they're basically just like an extra layer of point defense. And the thing that's really cool about them is that they're super long range compared to regular point defense. So all the normal things like Auroras and Defenders and rebounds, these all have like a 1 kilometer range. So 35 meters at 1 kilometer, 3 meters at 1 kilometer, so forth. The 100 millimeter cannon, Mark 62 here, this has a 5 kilometer range, so it can start engaging. It's like a mini Sarissa almost. It's not quite as good as a Sarissa, I think, but it's it's a really long range anti-missile weapon. And then likewise, the Mark 64 has a 7.5 kilometer range, so it's a huge range anti-incoming missile weapon. So if you're not using your guns, any guns that you're not using for offense can be used for defense, and the Mark 62 here is specifically for that purpose because it's got a little bit higher rate of fire, it's a little bit faster, and it's got a little bit shorter engagement range for the other guns, and less offensive power. So although we have the 250s as our main offense, the Mark 62 is mainly for point defense. So that's our offensive weaponry here and our main point defense. In terms of compartments, each ship is equipped with 2 basic CICs in different parts of the ship. That's for the sake of redundancy. So if we look at the points here, a basic CIC is 20 points, Citadel CIC is 150 points, Reinforced CIC is 50 points. So 2 basic CICs is going to be 40 points. It has ×2 compounding, but I don't think it's yeah, this only has 20 points, is that right? Let's see, this is point cost 1076. I'm going to keep track of which slot this is before I take this off. Compartment 6. That's 1066. So it's actually only counting that as... So the base cost is actually only 10 points, right? But it's ×2 compounding. So I think the second one is 20 points and the first one is 10 points. Anyway, it's 30 points, which is still less than the 50 points for the reinforced CIC or the 150 for the Citadel. And I think you get more durability kind of overall for having 2 CICs instead of having the reinforced CIC. Because if you look, I got one that's all the way up here and one that's in the top in the middle in the superstructure. So if I'm getting attacked from above, this one's going to get knocked down, but this one's protected by the bullseye radar, so it's unlikely that this one's going to get locked. Actually, it's protected by the bullseye radar and the large DC locker, so it's unlikely that both of those things are going to get hit at the same time, which makes it a great way to make sure that the ship stays under command. And then likewise, any angle that I attack from, it's going to be hard to hit both of the CSEs at one time. If I get hit from below the nose, that could be maybe like an angle where you'd be more likely to hit both, but you still got like 4 or 5 other things that you have to go through, so it's not going to be easy. So that's the CIC setup, and all 3 of the ships have that. That's kind of like my standard setup for light cruiser. And then they each have 2 large DC lockers, and then they each have a single reinforced magazine. Now the reinforced magazine costs more than the regular magazine for the same amount of space, but the first magazine that you put on the ship is free. So this didn't really cost me extra here to reinforce the magazine. And since what I have here is just cannon shells, they don't take up a lot of space because I'm not using 450s, so I can basically put as much ammo as I want here in this one slot. Now I like to have, if I'm spending a lot of points on a ship, I like to have multiple magazines for the same reason that I have multiple CICs, so that I can keep firing and don't get all my weapons knocked out by a hit in one particular place. But I didn't have enough points for that in this case because, like I said, the reinforced magazine, the point cost scales with the size of the slot that you put it in. So like this one, if I put it in this slot here, is 48 points, which is a ton of points. So I thought that a single reinforced magazine would be the way to go because I didn't want to spend 150 points on just places to store ammunition. That's my reinforced magazines. And then same thing over here, same thing over here. Now in the modules, they're a little bit more differentiated. I try to put some extra micro reactors in addition to the main reactor usually, because I want my power to be around 60 or 70% of maximum. I want it to be so that if one of my reactors gets knocked out, the ship can continue fighting and can continue providing point defense and all that kind of stuff. Especially if I turn off radar, like if I got a spyglass going and somebody knocks out the reactor, I should be able to turn off the spyglass and then keep shooting, that kind of thing. So this is about what I want to be with my power, and I want to have multiple reactors to provide that. This first guy has a spyglass radar, which is the long-range radar for spotting enemies at a distance, and it has a track correlator because the spyglass is not that accurate, so this reduces positional error and velocity error by 20%. It's got a Scryer missile ID system. This identifies missiles that my ships detect so that I can figure out what their systems are, what type of homing they use, and that kind of stuff. And that helps the point defense systems be more effective, particularly the chaff and flares. Because if the system knows that a missile only uses radar, it doesn't need to launch any chaff, so it's just saving me point defense. And then the Ada Lovelace is pretty basic with a frontline radar. Since he's already at 75% power, I don't have a second reactor here. So this makes the ship a little bit easier to knock out because I've only got 1 reactor. But, I only have so many points in the fleet, so that was why I ended up doing it that way. And then the Margaret Hamilton. Now, this guy is actually my main offense. The Margaret Hamilton has a gun plotting center, which makes the weapons more accurate, minus 30% spread. That helps the Mark 62 and also the Mark 64s. It's got the 2 large DC lockers. It has a reinforced magazine, 2 basic CICs. And then it has extra micro reactors. It has a supplementary radio amplifier. No, this is for command-guided missiles mainly, but it also helps. So this is actually kind of like one of my anti-jamming detection ships. So what it has, it's got a parallax radar. Parallax radar is a locking radar that has a longer range than the standard radar. It's 9.5 kilometers max. and that enables me to, without having a bullseye available, I can lock onto a target, and I can track that target. It is a bit susceptible to jamming, which is why I've included the adaptive radar receiver for a 25% sensitivity boost and minus 0.7 decibels of noise filtering, whatever the heck that means. It increases my positional error a little bit, but it also, it's a lock-on radar, so it's pretty accurate to begin with. And then I've got the supplementary radio amplifiers help me stay in contact with the other ships. So I'm getting hit by comms jamming. I want, let's say that they're jamming me with a blanket jammer and they're also jamming me with comms jamming. I want the Margaret Hamilton to be able to detect them through the jamming using the adaptive radar receiver, and then be able to transmit their position of the enemy to the other ships. So that's what the supplemental radio amplifiers are for. They increase my transmission power to prevent comms jamming. And then I also have 2 ammunition elevators because this is my main gunship and I wanted to shoot a little bit faster. Ammunition elevators each provide minus 15% to reload time. So that's the ship systems. Let's talk about the missiles. So the missiles I only have 6 missiles on this fleet. Each of these light cruisers has 3 missile channels by default. I don't have to spend any points on that. So I figured, okay, I'm going to take 6 missiles because I can put them on 2 of my ships here and fire 6 at a time, and I can do something really useful by spending just a little bit of points, and I don't have to put up a whole bunch of missile enhancing systems or things like that because of the number of channels that I have across the ships here. The missiles that I have on here are super expensive battleship killer missiles. They're 67 points. They're called the Halberd. And this is the design. So it's a size 3 hybrid missile, which means it fires from a torpedo tube, but it turns into a size 2 missile after it goes through its initial cruise stage. So it has a range, the cruise stage has a range of 14,000 meters, goes 180 meters per second, and it has acceleration of 6.7 G. So this is more optimized for, let's say more, the cruise stage, the S3 hybrids are all pretty long range. This is kind of short range for an S3 hybrid. It's more optimized for top speed with the 14,000 meter range. And then at the end of the 14,000 meters, or when it detects a target that's within a certain distance, within the distance of the seekers, it's going to switch to the size 2 stage, which is called the sprint stage. So what that's going to do is it's going to speed up the missile. So I'm going from 180 meters per second to my stage 2 rocket, which is 756 meters per second. That's what, I don't know, 6 times, whatever, how many, much faster. That's much faster than the previous stage. It only has a less than 4,000 meter range in this mode, so it's just going to go very quickly, a short distance, to penetrate an enemy point defense net. And then it's using a HE kinetic penetrator. The HE kinetic penetrator has increased armor piercing depending on the speed of the missile. So this sprint stage of the missile is mostly optimized for speed. It could be a little bit faster, but I also wanted it to have long range so it can start the sprint stage before it gets within the enemy point defense net, which tends to be, I think it sort of effectively starts at about 3,000 meters depending on what the enemy has. So a lot of their, the sort of basic point defenses are all like 1,000 meter range, but some of the more sophisticated stuff like the 100 millimeter cannons and stuff like that tend to be more effective, I find, at around this range. So so this is where it starts to sprint and try to avoid incoming enemy fire. We have an electro-optical seeker. This missile was designed to counter Alliance battleships. I designed it before the OSP update, so keep that in mind. So this is electro-optical seeker, which can't be countered by Alliance technology. And then we have the hardened skin, which makes the missile harder to kill, plus 20 body integrity. We have a decoy launcher. Now I'm going for these super expensive missiles. I could have gone for a cluster decoy launcher, but I think that it's better to use a regular decoy launcher, because what I found is if I put like one missile with a cluster decoy launcher instead of 2 missiles with a regular decoy launcher, one of those missiles is going to get shot down by a Sarissa. So, if I fire 2 of them, I lose 1, and then I still have a missile and a bunch of decoys. If I just fire one of them with all the decoys in it, the decoys don't even get to deploy before the missile gets shot down by the Sarissa. So this kind of spreads out. This kind of makes the missile super effective, but also reduces the cost compared to using the cluster decoy launcher. And then I've got cruise guidance, which means I can fire the missile around corners and stuff like that. And it has the corkscrew terminal maneuvers, meaning it's going to fly in a crazy spiral pattern to try to evade enemy point defense fire. Let's do a quick test. I'm going to just pop this fleet on the testing range, and then we're going to use... I've got a... that's not it. Here we go. No... There we go. So I have a battleship that is kind of like my standard that I test against. Again, this was developed pre-OSP update. But this is, I just kind of want to show what the missiles can do. Okay, so we're in the test range here.
Standing by.
Aye, aye. Falling in.
Our cruisers in some kind of formation here. And then we got to figure out which one's the battleship.
Understood. Engaging the enemy.
I guess I could just do that by...
Attempting target lock.
How can we help today, Commander?
I think this one's the battleship. Yeah, it seemed to be hitting a pretty wide area there, so I think that's the battleship. So I'm going to go ahead and fire my missiles at it. Now these are EO missiles, so it is possible to kind of counter them by
Copy that.
putting another ship in front of the ship that I'm targeting. So these missiles are all going to charge up at the same time. And then they're going to pop out of the launcher one out of the other. There's only one launcher per ship, but there's 3 channels. Here they come. Let's follow them in. So this is the cruise stage. They're just closing on the ship. You can see one of our missiles got shot down here. Here come all the decoys. Okay, and you can see at least one missile hit the target. So that's kind of my goal with these missiles. I've only got 6 of them. This is not really a missile fleet, but I wanted to be able to punch up and hit a heavier target without necessarily spending major resources on it. It looks like one of the missiles also hit this range and killed it, which is okay by me. So now we can kind of pound the battleship once it's a little bit weakened. Let's take a look at just how much the missiles did, though. So that, like 1 or 2 missiles, so those 6 missiles, we completely eliminated this frigate. And this is how much damage we did to the battleship. Look at all that. Almost none of this damage came from our guns. Almost all of it is just missile damage, I believe. Let's take a look and confirm that. So here we have Mark 64. So this guy did 252 damage with the cannons. This guy did 427 damage with the cannons, and this guy did 400 damage. So they did, between them, less than 2,000 damage. This battleship took, however, almost 7,000 damage. And you can see that pretty much every system on the ship is damaged because we hit it head on. So the way the HEKP missiles work is they kind of hit something and then they go through the ship almost in a straight line, and whatever's in that line is going to get damaged. So a couple missiles are hitting it at slightly different angles. You end up with something like this, and it took out a couple of systems on the battleship and severely weakened it. So pretty happy with that outcome. And then, so this is just kind of a really good all-around fast multi-role fleet. It's great for hunting down enemy corvettes. It's probably going to be good at clearing mines, although I haven't actually tried that out yet. I haven't played it against OSP too much. And it's going to be good at fighting other heavy ships like line ships and battleships and things like that. So that's going to be it for this fleet. I want to say thanks very much for watching. Oh, hey, Apple Pie, how's it going? The Citadel CIC benefit EO targeting? I don't think so. I was under the impression at one point that the EO targeting is dependent on intelligence, but I find the more that at least when I messed around with it during the missile update, it seemed like that was not the case. It seems like it just... you take a look at the EO thing here. So, cameras with advanced image processing algorithms allowing them to pick out targets with greater accuracy. Seekers are nearly impossible to decoy, and unlike radar-based seekers, they're able to identify specific ships if fired at a target with enough intelligence. That's what it says in the description, but I've never really got it to home in on a specific target. Maybe let's try that again, actually. Let's see. Okay, so the question is, if we have enough intelligence on the target to know that it's a battleship, can we specifically target the battleship and avoid targeting the frigate? Let's actually see if we can do that.
I command.
Because my experience when I was doing like the closed beta testing during the missile update, that wasn't the case, but it's possible that they've changed that or fixed that.
We're underway.
Oh my god, he's whacked.
Hey Flea, thanks for the follow. Also, hey Nermatic, how's it going? I don't know. Yeah, it is weird. I feel like I think what a lot of people do is they stream on Discord, because this game has an official Discord that a lot of the regular players hang out on, and they have a lot of voice channels available for people to play in. So I think a lot of times people will just hang out on one of the voice channels and stream whatever they're playing on Discord. Other people on Discord watch. But I like streaming on Twitch because, you know, it's kind of where I stream all my games. And I know people there. That's fun. Oh, and also I make a little bit of money. Not too much, but, you know. Stopped waiting for Homeworld 3 when I found out about Nebulous. Yeah, it's nice. I never played Homeworld, actually. I've heard that it's a lot like this game, or that I think actually this game was inspired by Homeworld. The guy that developed it is like a Navy radar technician who thought that Homeworld needed slightly more detailed space combat.
What can we do for you, Commander?
I wonder that people fear that viewers could stream snipe. Yeah, I've had a couple comments about that, but generally it hasn't been a problem. The community for the game is so small to begin with that it's like, you know, not many people watch the game on Twitch either, so it's not that likely, I would say. Okay, so we know that this is a Solomon now. We're gonna go over to the side where the Reigns is. I could actually just use the cruise feature of the missile. Let's do that. Okay, so halberds. I just hope I don't aim this wrong. I'd have to target the specific ship, right? Otherwise it's not really a valid test. Okay, I think the freighter is sufficiently between us now that it should be a pretty good test. So if the Reigns gets targeted, then target reference point. Oh, so target reference. Are you asking me what it is, or are you saying that I should use one?
Low missile warning.
Here's the missiles. Let's see what happens with them. See, they did hit the frigate, actually. So you're playing a person who is streaming, but how would you figure out you were playing them? Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to recognize the person's name, I guess. See, this, like, even though it says in the description of the EO missiles that you could target a specific class of ship, I don't think that works, because, look, I mean, we targeted the battleship here with all of our missiles. We knew that it was a battleship, right? And against all the missiles targeted the freighter instead. The battleship didn't even take any damage in that encounter, so... So yeah, that is one counter to EO missiles, despite what it says in the description, is that you could just put another ship in front of the ship that's being targeted if it's a cheap, you know, ship that you're willing to throw away to protect your battleship or whatever. Which is not always necessarily the best strategy. Sometimes you want to keep your little ships because they provide a vital function. Yeah, so the intelligence center doesn't really help in this case because I already had the intelligence to know what kind of ship it is, and it didn't actually help me hit that ship. That's my experience anyway. Alright, so I'm gonna continue streaming on Twitch, so if you're watching on Espionage is Fair Play, like in the metagame and Eve, yeah, I don't know, maybe. I wouldn't. I mean, this game's not that. This community's pretty friendly. Like, there's no like formal ladder ranked gaming or anything like that. So like, it's not really competitive to the point where people would want to do that. I don't think. But if they did, if that became a problem where somebody was always finding me and killing me, then maybe I would delay the stream or something. But I hate to do that because I like to chat with people while I'm playing. Anyway, that's going to be it for this recording. So if you're watching on YouTube, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. It's free. And I will see you next time. Take care, folks.